Bombshell exclusive. Government owes Solvent CLF $2.66 billion, an editorial by Sowadath Prasad. I promise to provide a status of exactly where CLF debt currently stands as part 2 to my December 18th op-ed post, headlined, Resolving CL Financial Bailout Matter Will Improve TT Credit Rating. So here goes. I'll cut right to the chase. Bottom line, CLF is highly solvent and can no longer be considered as owing the state. In fact, the government is now owing CLF approximately $2.7 billion. But in reality, it could be a higher amount. Calculations are based on my reconciliation of verifiable figures contained in publicly accessible court documents, liquidator reports, published audited accounts, and media reports on transactions relating to CLF assets, alongside conservative estimates by deductible reasoning where applicable. The original debt claim. According to the High Court petition filed by the Attorney General on July 11, 2017 for provisional liquidation of CLF under the Companies Act, Chap. 81:01, CV 2017-02536, the total amount owed by CLF to GORTT under the Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, and subsequent shareholders' agreement is $23.1 billion. However, the central bank's November 2018 publication titled Resolution Strategy for CLECO and Related Companies by Dr. Alvin Hilaire, the central bank governor at the time, states, overall, the government provided approximately $24 billion to the various entities covered by the agreement, equivalent then to around 17% to the county's GDP. Let's use the $24.83 billion from the November 2018 central bank publication as the figure owed and assume there would be some amount of subsequent contingent costs, legal, consultancy fees, etc., to be added from 2018 to present. Repayments made. Now, let us revert to the liquidation petition, which states that as at April 30th, 2016, CLECO had repaid GORTT the sum of $7.5 billion. CLECO subsequently repaid a further $9.9 billion to GORTT in cash, and debt-to-equity swaps after the company was put into liquidation from September 2017. Therefore, a total of $17.4 billion, $7.5 billion plus $9.9 billion can safely be accounted for as repaid to GORTT. The Raleigh regime's conspiratorial actions. Let's stick a pin here and revisit government's actions in the lead-up to April 30th, 2016, and thereafter for context. It is important to note that upon expiration of the shareholders' agreement on April 30th, 2016, then Minister of Finance Colm Imbert withheld signing a new shareholders' agreement. The conspiratorial absence of a validating shareholders' agreement to guide the repayment process caused a stall in payments to GORTT. This situation was engineered by the Raleigh regime as a plank to petition the High Court for provisional liquidation on July 11, 2017, by claiming CLF was insolvent because it had not paid any installment in 18 months since April 30th, 2016. However, no audited accounts were tendered in court as hard evidence to justify insolvency. Yet Justice Kevin Ramcharan allowed the unjustified provisional liquidation, a travesty of justice. As if that was not a travesty of justice perpetrated in the High Court, worse were to follow 3 months later when, in September 2017, the government filed a further petition for compulsory liquidation. History would record that the High Court bowed to the Raleigh regime in granting permission to liquidate a solvent company without any audited accounts provided to justify such drastic action. The Raleigh regime then swooped in to seize control of several CLF subsidiaries by commandeering varying portion of shares via debt for equity swaps. Then Minister of Finance and Corporation Sol Colm Imbert boldfacedly refused to factor in control premiums for acquisition of controlling shares, in contravention of standard international practice and security and exchange rules on mandatory acquisition. A fundamental question in all of this is why would the government want to acquire the controlling shares in CLF subsidiaries if they were insolvent? It's a question that Imbert and Raleigh have shamelessly continuously evaded answering up to this day. Detailed reconciliation. So that's the background and context against which the following items were submitted in court via its July 11, 2017 petition by GORTT, which provided a breakdown against which bailout funds were provided to CLF entities. Below is a bulleted breakdown of each item listed in the petition. There followed with my reconciliation of actual or due repayment sums accompanied by a brief qualifying explanation marked by a ballot box with check. Petition: injection into CLECO to protect traditional policyholders $5,957. My reconciliation: fully repaid except for common shares via GORT's acquisition of 2 tranches of shares in a debt-to-equity swap. Preferential shares valued at $4,992,750,957 and common shares valued at $7,250,000. Petition: injection into BAT to protect traditional policyholders $872,322,077. My reconciliation: not yet paid. Petition: payments to CLECO short-term investment plans, STIPs, $10,855,458,001. My reconciliation: this sum would have been repaid to GORTT in full from its takeover of the policy liabilities. Petition: payments to BAT STIPs $765,064,063. My reconciliation: not yet paid. Petition: payments to CLECO Investment Bank, CIB, depositors $1,870,659,526. My reconciliation: CIB sold assets and paid $939,819,345.90 in cash distributions of 50.24 cents on the dollar. Petition: payments to First Citizens Investment Services, FCS, to protect Caribbean money market brokers, CMMB, investors $731,176,936. My reconciliation: liquidator has made part payment of $10,821,418.65, representing 1.48 cents on the dollar. Petition: payments to liquidator of British American Insurance Company, BICO, to acquire the promissory note $334,964,571. My reconciliation: liquidator has paid interim dividend of $4,957,975, representing 1.48 cents on the dollar. Petition: interest and financing cost to April 30th, 2016, $2,665,740,710. My reconciliation: not clear how this figure was arrived at. The bottom line: bailout total claimed by GORT, $24.83 billion, CBTT 2018 figure. Repaid, $20.47 billion current up to December 2025. Balance owed, $4.36 billion. However, the combined estimated control premium of $4.979 billion, calculated at 25 to 30% of share price, for acquiring controlling shares in core CLF companies, Republic Bank Limited, RBL, Angostura Holdings Limited, AHL, and Home Construction Limited, HCL, plus estimated mismanagement cost of $3.042 billion, amount to $8.021 billion that must be factored into any payoff equation or calculation. Government actually owes CLF. When all figures are taken into account, it turns out that GORTT is actually owing around CLF $3.66 billion. If an estimated $1 billion is factored into the equation as contingency costs from 2018 to present, then it is reasonable to assume that GORTT is actually owing CLF around $2.66 billion. My calculated view is that this balance can be fully repaid via the mechanism of a non-cash transaction whereby CLF can repurchase government equity in its subsidiaries. Liquidator fees can be repaid from CLF financial cash balances in line with the recent Privy Council ruling, JCPC 2023/0071.